This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Welcome to another episode. Today, I am talking with James Rousseau, author of the incredible book, Success on Your Own Terms, and the CEO and head honcho of the Core Link Solution. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, David. Good to be with you.
So your main thing is career consulting, career advice, career mentorship. I always like to ask, how did you get into that? What was the professional journey that brought you to the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, I would say it wasn't deliberate for sure. And thank you for the opportunity. I think it happened over time just by naturally mentoring people during, while you're in leadership roles, right? I had a journey that, came from an unlikely place where I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself or my childhood and things like that. So I think when I got in a position to help others, I was deeply intentional about trying to help others, right? So I read a lot of books early in my career. I was a geek reading things like Lincoln on Leadership and learning from the likes of Stephen Covey and, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and things like that to try to understand people in the process of understanding people and how to draw the best out of them.
Give us a little journey through your corporate career. What did you do before you struck out on your own?
I think the first corporate job was probably Today's Man. I worked in the finance division and payroll. Then I moved to a small bank in Wilmington, Delaware called Wilmington Savings Fund Society. And that's where I got my first taste of human resources, managing a number of functions there. Then I went to a place called NovaCare Employer Services and did some things there. And then I did some consulting on HR and payroll systems like PeopleSoft, et cetera. And then my first really big corporate job was at JPMorgan Chase in 2000, initially in New York City. I helped transition them from Genesis to PeopleSoft. I had overall responsibility for payroll, and then we merged with JPMorgan. So I started at Chase, we merged with JPMorgan, and then I was running what was called HR service delivery for all of North America. And that's when I had, 200 people, right? And so you learn how to just, how you drive and affect change through layers of people, helping leaders become better leaders, et cetera. And then I moved to our credit card side of the business. So I wanted to get on the revenue side of the house and let's stop being on the expense, learn the other side of the P&L. And then I did that for 5 years. And I went to Allstate Insurance Company in 2011 as president of the Affinity Solutions business, which was a brand new business they wanted to start. They wanted to figure out how to diversify distribution. I did that for 3 some odd years. And then I went to LegalShield in 2014 or so as president of B2B there. And that opportunity was about how do you try to bring disparate parts of an organization together and create a true B2B market strategy. Then I became chief commercial officer while there. And then in 2018, had the opportunity to fully chase my passion. Along that way, the book was published in 2014, and I increasingly was spending more and more time mentoring people and speaking and doing different things. And I knew I wanted to not only invest in people from inside a large corporation, but figure out how I could go outside of the corporation and really develop our nonprofit to do more of it full time.
Wow. So I've got a whole bunch of questions. This is so fantastic because, we typically work with folks who are entrepreneurs who speak and also executives who speak. But it sounds like you published your book and you started to establish your thought leadership platform while you were still a senior executive.
Correct.
How did that work? How did you balance that? Were your senior kind of C-suite people that you were working with a little bit suspicious? Like, hey, what's James up to? What's going on here with this book?
So funny you say that. So I wrote most of the book while at Allstate, I didn't decide to publish it. We wound up publishing it when I was at LegalShield. The interesting thing is in a LegalShield environment, which is a product company, but also a direct selling company, you're out talking to current sellers and would-be sellers often. So it was a great platform where I'm already out anyway speaking lots of times during the course of a month and year. So it was the perfect combination where it was on balance to be out speaking, whether I was speaking inside the company, outside the company, it was good for the company and for me at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's totally amazing. Tell us a little bit about your either professional speaking, whether it was for fee or whether it was on behalf of Allstate, LegalShield, et cetera, because I've talked to folks that are former executives at Accenture, for example. I've talked to folks, there's former executives at Berkshire Hathaway who, like you, established their publishing and speaking and thought leadership while they were still on the inside. How did you start approaching this in 2014 from a speaking standpoint, association speaking, doing events, seminars, training, while still working on the inside?
Yeah, I started with my network. So I did a couple things. One, I had a great book coach, Melissa Wilson in Chicago. Yeah, first of all, I never thought it was going to be a book. It was a bunch of notes that aggregated as I was mentoring people. I started taking notes to be consistent. And my assistant would say, hey, your calendar is just full with mentee meetings. I would never turn anyone down. And so you're taking these notes, and next thing you know, you have this large Word document. And I'm discussing it with a good friend, Billy Dexter, who wrote the foreword for the book. And I said, Billy, got all these notes. He goes, I think that's a book. And I go, well, no, it's not a book. It's just a lot of notes. He said, well, you mind if I introduce you to a book coach? And he introduces me to Melissa. And she said, no, it's a book. I said, well, no, it's not a book. It's just notes. And she said, well, you mind if I introduce you to a agent? And I said, fine. So I meet the agent and he takes it out and he comes back with like 2 book deals in a couple of weeks. And so
you just took your raw notes.
Yeah, just took the raw. I mean, Melissa helped dress it up with an intro, right? That will help people understand the overall premise and everything and who the market would be, right? But like we didn't go through this whole exhaustive process of trying to pitch this thing. Literally, it was the notes and Melissa's touching up on some of the front of it. And he took it out and came back and said, I got 2 deals for you to consider. And there we went with Career Press. And so then when you start that process, what you think is maybe done is so far from done, it's unbelievable, right? So you get a check, a contract, a due date, and all these stipulations. So as we're going through the process, Melissa was educating me on different things to consider in terms of how you promote the book. And speaking is obviously one of them, right? Whether it's corporate environments, to your point, associations, different clubs, and so on and so forth. And I took the route of one, understanding who the NSA was sooner rather than later and trying to use some of those things. 2, like using e-speakers, which I find to be a great tool and resource. And again, it's a marketplace. It doesn't, necessarily, it won't just because you have a page get you booked, but it's certainly a great place to be. Let me say it a little different way. To not be there is a mistake, right? You need to be in that marketplace, in my humble opinion. Once I published the book, shared it with my network on LinkedIn and all the other places to let people know. And having come from the HR discipline earlier in my career, with people inside of JPMorgan Chase, et cetera, I always say that HR alumni has spread out vastly across finance industry and otherwise. And so a lot of good phone calls that helped me get networked in other places to get speaking gigs.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, I want to dig in to your brilliance and your expertise on career coaching.
Sure.
Because I'm looking at the website, I'm looking at the book, and you have this amazing framework that maybe came from organizing all those raw notes about the 6 promises, correct?
Yes.
Walk us through the 6 promises and then maybe some aha moments for folks who are listening that might be stuck in their career, whether it's an entrepreneurial career or an executive career, and what little beacons can we light under each of those 6 promises?
Absolutely. Well, the first promise is to follow your passion, right? And really dig into your passion. And, what we find so often in the first probably 20% or so of the book is focused on trying to take a step back and digging into your passion and not pursue finances first, not pursue everyone's advice first. And people are so well-meaning when they give you advice, but a lot of times the premise of their advice is what they've learned from other places, what they've seen as the common themes and best practices, and to really shut it all off and focus on you. What are the things that drive you? I usually ask, even in coaching, I ask people a couple key questions when we start. When you were 12, 13, 14 years old, what is it that you knew that you had to do, that you would do, right? Now, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? If you won the lottery and after you take the trips you want to take, buy the parents the house you want them to have, and do all those wonderful things, and then that all is done and you still have this pot of money you have to work again, what is it that you're going to be doing? And usually between those 3 questions, we usually get to this place of, that's the thing. That's the thing that fires you up, gives you this endless amount of energy and gets you going. So that's the first thing. Really embrace your passion. Don't discount it. Find a way to find it. I do success thought of the day every morning. And the one earlier this week was chase your passion and purpose and let money chase you.
Ooh, I like that. Let money chase you. Let me dig into that one before we move on to the other 5. Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. I'm guessing that, let's say that someone answers the lottery question, the $475 million Powerball, and you've done all the great things. And now, James, I think I want to open a bakery. Now, are we literally saying, okay, let's look in the baking industry, or do you help them sort of unpack the DNA markers of, well, what does that bakery mean? That means you're doing something with your hands. That means that you're welcoming people into a place. That means that you're nourishing them on some level. Am I right that it's not literally, oh, here's how to open a bakery, but you unpack what the DNA strands are in that dream?
That's exactly right. You unpack those strands, you unpack those motivations, you unpack the actions. What does it feel like? To different people are open to it. You do some visualization. What does it look like when you're there, right? Because the more you can do to help them understand it, because sometimes that initial thing is not the thing, right? So yeah, David, just to get people to open up the thought process to considering a thing is a huge win, right? Because oftentimes we feel like we're stuck in where we're stuck. I went to school for X, so I need to do X, right? Or people expect me to do Y, so I need to do Y, as opposed to this is the area, the space, the things that give me that energy.
Right. So very quick, funny personal story. Then I'm going to ask you about our next promise. I started out growing up thinking that I wanted to be a doctor. And I actually went to college. I started out in the pre-med program. Now, fast forward to today, coaching, mentoring, helping people who are in trouble in some kind of pain. That same DNA from wanting to be a quote unquote doctor. It's just now I'm a marketing doctor, business doctor, sales doctor, call it what you want.
Right.
Is the DNA still there? Absolutely. Every day. Every day.
That's a great example.
What's our next promise?
The next promise is progress versus perfection. It's so funny because when I was writing the book, I didn't think about it this way, but the more contemporary way to think about this is, we expect things done quickly and we expect them to be absolutely perfect, right? Because we can, because technology has enabled things to happen microwave quick and to be, like Six Sigma out of the gates, right? And it doesn't work that way on your career journey. Right? It doesn't. And so to focus on steps of progress, I like to use a phrase a lot. It's brick by brick. We drive down different highways and all of a sudden we see this building as if the building got there overnight. We weren't paying attention to the bricks as they were going up, right? But it's still brick by brick, layers, then windows, then the insides and different things like that must happen. And so to not be competition focused and I must be there tomorrow, but to stop and take short breaths along the way and really focus on the progress you're going to make along this road.
Yeah, really, really important. I love that brick by brick. Even in a marketing mode, we'll do a competitive scan of, okay, you're a leadership speaker, you're a sales speaker. Look at 3 or 4 other leadership speakers or sales speakers, look at their website, watch their videos, etc. People always get depressed.
Right.
It's like, oh, they're so far ahead. I'm never going to be able to compete with that. It's like, no, you're looking at their step 17.
Exactly.
You're at step 3. Never compare your own step 3 to someone else's step 17 because they got their brick by brick, right?
Exactly. It takes time. The third one is promote with purpose. And, it's almost like when we think about an elevator pitch. To me, a pitch always has, 3 or 4 components. One, striking some form of relevance with the person so they get immediately, why are you talking to them? 2, expressing what it is that you want to do, right? 3, giving them some indication and proof points of what you've done that demonstrates that, right? And then fourthly, the ask, okay? And that's how I think about promoting with purpose. It's not about being salesy. It's not about hat in your hand. And a lot of people shy away from this because they don't want to feel like they're bothering people. They don't want to feel like they're asking people. But the truth of the matter is, and David, I'm sure you've been in a situation too. I can tell you, having led teams of 200, 400, LegalShield, where it was several thousand distributors, it's very difficult for me to reach down and identify people I can personally help. Those who raise their hand and ask for help in a specific way, and I feel like I can do it, I'm often going to do it. right? And so that's what this is about. How do you promote yourself and put yourself out there to say, hey, to your point, it's this bakery, hey, Mr. Johnson, you own a bakery, this bakery chain, I admire it because it does these 2 or 3 things that differentiates itself. I want to be in that space because I've always had this passion of being in the kitchen, the ovens, whatever it is that move me. And these are the things I've done. I've taken these classes, I've watched these YouTube videos, so on and so forth. And I would love to shadow you for a day to understand the business to ensure I want to invest more and take the next steps, right? And that's what a part of the Promote with Purpose is about.
So much of what you talk about, both in the book and I'm sure with your clients, what you said is, of course, the first problem is not the real problem. The first dream is not really the underlying dream. How do we work on the mindset where, for example, people are reluctant to ask? They're afraid to ask. They're afraid to do that, promotion with integrity. That's a mindset issue. That's not like, oh, here's how to ask for what you just said.
Yeah.
How do we address the underlying mindset that it's really the most successful people who ask the most?
Yeah.
We look at it as a sign of weakness sometimes from the outside. Asking is really a sign of strength. How do you communicate that on the gut level, on the heart level?
I think you have to approach with a belief that people want to help more than they do not, that more want to, and that consider yourselves. We all get the Apple phone reports now weekly, and it says we're several hours on our phone a day. We don't leave a waking minute unoccupied, right? You drive by a bus stop. What are people doing? Looking down, right? In between meetings, walking the hall, looking down while you walk through the hall. So everyone is consumed, right? But assume that they welcome the disruption to be asked for help. Willing to invest in people, right? I just had a meeting yesterday. I was looking at some space and talking to a gentleman. We got to talking about the need to give back in different communities. And our conversation was so unexpected, but his passion to say, well, what do we do? Like, how do I do it from this chair I'm in? He's in an interesting position. He could help a lot of people, but he doesn't know where to plug in, right? And I'm going, classic example, how do I tie him to somebody who wants that mentorship? So assume if you're listening and you say, I've been wanting to learn this area, assume that the same channels you use to socially talk to people all over the place, we're able to reach more people than we ever have been in our history because of social media. And you can hit someone that you've never met before, that you admire, to do things, and just consider it a normal sales hit rate, right? Whatever you expect in sales, a 5% response rate, it may be the same thing, but keep asking people to get their time, to get some mentorship, to get some apprenticeship. That's the way to go.
Love it. What's our next promise?
Next promise is parlay your platform. So one of the things that often happens with us is we don't believe we're there yet. We never feel like we're there yet. We haven't done enough yet. I haven't been seen enough. I haven't done enough. I don't have anything to give. And so when you think that way, you pitch yourself that way, right? If anybody's ever been in sales knows that your confidence comes across before you say a word. It's in your body language. It's in your positioning. It's the way you walk in the door and everything. And one of the things you have to do is take inventory and stock of your platform. And your platform consists of a couple things. It's all the experiences you've amassed to date. Every experience counts, okay? It's the people in your network. You have to take stock of your network. And it's not just all the contacts. You need sometimes every now and then to go through the contacts and understand who they are. What are those real deep relationships, right? And it's your reputation. How do people know you, refer to you, and think about you? And what I do is help people kind of put that together in the workbook, put together a view of their platform so they can see the whole thing, your reputation, your relationships, and your experiences, which gives you a powerful platform to parlay yourself off of.
Love it. Now, remember, my company name is Do It Marketing.
Right.
So not think about it marketing, not get overwhelmed marketing, not overanalyze marketing. I love promise number 5, put it into action. How do we get people off the couch?
That's right. So in promise number 5, we take the work that's been done to date and we put it into an action plan. The last evolution actually uses the 12-week format, right? So how do we get people into that 12-week format of taking action? And I can't think of his name right now, but it's a wonderful book. And the premise of the 12-week action plan from his book is, it's amazing how, let's just use a round number. You'll have a team with the sales goals of 1 million in revenue of sales goals, 250 a quarter, literally. And somehow, third quarter, they're behind. They're behind it. They've done, 600,000 or 400,000, 150 behind plus the 250 they have for the quarter. And how much they get done in that last 12 weeks of the year. And through the research, right, they were able to prove out that it's a focus. It's a focus and a mindset and being diligent about setting the monthly things you're going to do, which turns into the weekly things, which turn into the daily things, which turns into extreme focus on what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And so that's what we do here is we put it into a 12-week action plan. We take your goals that are created around 8 areas. So we don't just look at career goals. We like to look at financial goals, life goals, health goals. So we don't like to pretend that you don't have a full life. And then boil that down into what are specific actions relative to these career things that we're talking about that you're going to do in 12-week cycles.
I think the book you're talking about is The 12-Week Year.
The 12-week year. That's exactly right.
Brian Moran. Great
Brian
book.
Moran. It's good. Excellent.
Yeah. Totally fantastic. So
Yeah.
now we're in action. What's promise number 6?
Promise number 6 is the teach so you retain. And it's called philanthropy. Okay. And it's the idea of all the things you learned, right? Give that gift of apprenticeship back through someone else, through mentoring and or sponsorship, right? And I don't like to assume people understand the difference, but again, a mentor is someone who helps someone, gives advice, gives counsel, can be a coach. A sponsor, let's just say, is a similar thing, but up a level because they're in a position with ability to also pull someone through an organization, right? Because of their unique position that they may be in, et cetera. And so what you want to do is all the things that you just went through, give that gift to someone else, which helps you also retain it and keep your muscle memory and build your muscle memory rather. But now you're helping build and take it out to the next level and scale it.
Really, really great. Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Well, let's go a little bit behind the scenes into the CoreLink empire. First of all, where does the name CoreLink come from?
Literally from linking yourself to your core. That's literally where it comes from.
Got it. Well, so I want to go behind the CoreLink Solutions empire. Let's talk about marketing and lead generation. Now, obviously, coming from having been a highly placed executive at a direct selling company, being in this career mentoring where it's all about networking and connecting and asking, I think I know the answer, but I never want to assume.
Sure.
How do you develop leads? How do you build relationships? What tactics have you found the most effective for you and your company?
Yeah, combination. So top down and bottoms up. So top down, again, using that network. As you may know, I'm an executive in residence at the Kellogg School of Management. So both my cohort and the team there is very helpful with lead gen, as well as my LinkedIn contact base, which is, 2,000 plus. And then NSA. And I'm a B2B fan, to be honest, right? B2B to C. So in other words, use large organizations and associations to get you to the sale. Bottoms up, we complement that with some social media and Google AdWords advertising, right? So when I think about a full marketing funnel, I always think about, my experience at Allstate, who spent like $1.2 billion on advertising, right? So you got, Dennis Haysbert on one hand and Mayhem, and the job of those two really worked well. Mayhem's job was to shake your confidence in other products. Dennis' job was to come on probably 60 seconds later and give you that assurance and hug you with that warm voice of Allstate's the place to be. That was then surrounded by other things that would happen at an agency level in the market and grocery stores and things like that with other ads and whatnot, right? And we often say a person needs to see something 7 or 8 times as a newbie to a brand in terms of exposure before they're willing to buy and convert, right? So I think of the same approach. I'm going to come through associations top down and things like that. And I'm going to try to, in certain places, I don't want to give the whole thing out, but I'm sure you appreciate this, where we can tag you and remarket, then remarket smartly through Google AdWords and Facebook marketing, et cetera.
So I'm curious, with both the Facebook ads and the Google ads, are those driving people to your book? Are they driving them to a phone conversation with you, like a consult? Is there an opt-in goodie or an email opt-in? What are we driving them to with that advertising campaign?
So there's a couple different targets. So let me think about the highest value target. The highest value target is going to be about the curriculum that we want to take out to colleges and employers, the Success in Your Own Terms curriculum. That's going to drive them to a lead opt-in to get a quick brochure and sheet, because I need to be on the phone for that type of sale, right? We need to have a conversation, right? You're not going to buy that on the website. Next level down would probably be our online curriculum, Success in Your Own Terms curriculum, right? Which has a much lower price point, but it's still a very good product for me. And that is all about getting you to sign up for that course. Okay. And you're going to get some freebies when you go in there, and the paywall becomes, we get you to get to that page. We want you to take some free parts of the course. And then there's a paywall to get the full course, right? So hopefully you enjoy what you've done and get started and go, okay, great. This is awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to continue with this because I see the value. The third one is for people who are decidedly want to make an improvement in their career, want to do something, but not ready to go that far yet. We get them to the book and the workbook. And then the fourth is for areas, again, which is where my heart is on the nonprofit stuff to serve people in our curriculum. We get them signed up for the success thought of the day, and we give them a download of the materials to understand how they can introduce it to their school.
So this is a very sophisticated online marketing strategy, correct?
It is, yeah.
And you built all of this in the last year or two.
Correct.
Wow. How did you know that the online course was going to be an important part of your business model?
Well, a couple things. One, I did not want to be on the road speaking. I didn't have the aspirations that some of my fellow speakers have, right? I was trying to look at the end game. So I always saw speaking as a gateway to the rest of the business. The second thing was I was just trying to be a student of the game. And I was watching Vic, I was watching Udemy, I was watching the continued evolution of online courses. And it felt like, again, like I said about e-speakers, how could you not have an offering, right? Because to have an offering that says, well, once a quarter, you can do a live class with me or a live webinar. One, that means I'm making people wait till a certain time. And we're kind of in an on-demand mindset. So it felt like, it felt sort of like mandatory to have that offering.
Well, I want to also pivot now because you sort of opened the door to all of your amazing work with educators. So you are not just a corporate speaker, corporate career coach. You do a lot of work in the education realm. Talk about how that came to be and then what the educator side of the business looks like.
It's still very early. We're literally in the launching stages. So I'll tell you what we've done and then what we aspire to do. So my heart is around kind of addressing some of the things I saw in my youth, which was being in the area that I felt was underserved, having a mindset of, I won't make it out of here unless I'm a great musician or athlete, right? How do we help cure that? We have right now, nationally, the current statistics are kids graduate high school with less than 40% are competent in math, reading, and science. Okay, if you look at Blacks and Hispanics, that drops to 25% competent. So we're pumping kids out of high school without being equipped. And biggest challenge with that is a belief system that I can do better, right? Talk about embrace your passion, things like that. A lot of it has to do with self-efficacy. And so what we've done in the youth version is amplify those components around self-efficacy and finding your superhero inside and how you take that along to find your way and what you want to do, graduate and get a good job. So the piece going to educators is complemented with a presentation they can do, facilitator's guide that we just finished that they can do over 3 or 4 sessions, and we develop it to them so I can come deliver it. But the real value is giving it to the teachers and allowing them to use it in their classrooms to scale it out and help give kids these tools.
And this sounds like it's a K through 12 curriculum or maybe even high school curriculum. We're not talking about college university curriculum.
You know, it's so funny. It was developed for more high school, but I've run into 2 or 3 professors, one who just grabbed me and said, I need this for my cornerstone class. He's like, my kids are graduating college and they don't understand some of these things. So they've asked me to consider it. So we're having some of those conversations as well.
You would have saved me about 18 months of a terrible GPA if I had taken this like my first semester and I realized, wait a minute, I don't want to be pre-med. Pre-med's a disaster. I don't even like blood. Why am I in a pre-med program? What's going on?
That is funny.
Help me, guide me. What decisions should I be making here as a little freshman, first time on campus, dazed and confused and bewildered, and I guess I'll just go to chemistry class, and disaster. It was
a disaster. Is that right? So after 18 months, you pulled out? What happened? How did that story end?
Yeah, well, so I started out pre-med. That came to a very, very sharp end when I failed chemistry, physics, and calculus all in the same semester.
Okay.
Then I thought I would go to psychology, which is kind of like medicine light. But psychology, guess what? Statistics. I hated statistics too. Meanwhile, the whole time I was involved in high school theater. I was involved in my college theater from the moment I stepped on campus. I said, what if I majored in drama? What if I majored in English? And lo and behold, I did then switch in my 3rd semester, so beginning of my sophomore year, to be a drama and English major. And then I went on to graduate school. I got an MFA in stage directing. that led to some teaching, and that led to my real passion, which is teaching, training, coaching, consulting. So, well, I want to ask you also, because we were talking about the 6 promises and we build it one brick at a time. I'm imagining that when you work with clients, when you work with students or executives, do you help them look back on all of their crazy, twisty path and then help them understand how each piece of that makes perfect sense given where they are now and given what's in their toolkit to move forward?
It depends. In that exercise we talked about of parlaying your platform, that's where they pull that inventory together, right? If you're in a large class setting, it's hard to continue to pull it out of people, right, given the time. In individual coaching, you can do a lot more of that. But what I find is, and even in the classroom setting, we try to have time where, you do the classic 3 or 4 people huddle up and they tell each other stories. So like, you just kind of see the wows. Wow, is that right? Wow, you did that? Wow, I did that too. Did you do? And then it just continues to build. And then as they're talking, each person goes, oh yeah, I forgot to add that. Oh yeah, I forgot to add that, right? And that's the build that happens in the classroom setting.
Yeah, very exciting. Also, just as far as a reference point, as far as this curriculum is concerned, my friend Steve Kasha, who is a past president of the NSA chapter here in Philadelphia, he is an HVAC customer service expert.
Mm-hmm.
And he works with HVAC companies. He's got some big sponsorships from companies like Carrier, the big HVAC manufacturer. At first, there was a trade school instructor that said, Steve, I want to teach your curriculum to my students. Lo and behold, fast forward to today, he's got 80 plus trade schools, any kind of trade school, HVAC, plumbing, electrician, 80 of them have adopted his curriculum for use with their students in their program. So I guess if I was to give you some kind of on-air advice here, you can build it brick by brick by brick. And there you are in, 150 school districts as part of their program, or 30 different colleges and universities, either the Cornerstone program, the orientation, the life assessment, life skills that we do in the first semester, all of those things.
Yeah, and I'm going to reach out to him. I always love to hear lessons learned from folks too, right? You can always get a nugget or two when you get some insight from other people's journey. So I'll reach out to him.
Let's wrap up. I've got 2 final questions for you. The final question is going to be, how do people get connected and stay connected to more James and more success on your own terms? But before that, if folks were to take one central idea from our conversation today, one kind of bumper sticker or inner mantra that they could take away from you, what would you hope that would be?
It would be to pick a quiet place at a designated time, and you may have to do this a few times, and journal what it is that gives you energy. And try it. By try it doesn't mean you call in Monday and say, I'm not coming in because I'm going to go do this thing. I want to be clear about that, right? You could do it sometime, part-time, and do it until whatever it is. And by the way, it may stay sometime in part-time, but just the fact that it gives you more margin, more energy, etc., enjoy that, right? And do that repeatedly and find those things. I love the phrase you use, and help find your DNA and things like that. We discover more about ourselves when we do that. And I'm finding, even as I'm getting older, I'm continuing to discover more about me, right? But you need to calendar it like you do everything else, or you will not do it, because we don't leave any unoccupied time. Okay.
Right, exactly. Well, the website is thecorelinkssolution.com. The book is Success on Your Own Terms. James, how can people connect with you, get more, stay connected, tap into your wisdom ongoing?
Well, you just said it. They can go to thecorelinkssolution.com. You will be immediately confronted with signing up for Success Thought of the Day. So sign up for that. You can also email me directly. So it's just James Rousseau, which is ROSSEAU @thecorelinkssolution.com. And I will immediately respond within 24 hours to any request that you send me. Happy to stay in contact and make sure you can get any career success help that you need.
James, thank you so much. What a great conversation. I appreciate you. This was an awesome, awesome interview.
Thank you for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.